of the lights. Hello, you are listening to the Bobcat. You know what? You know what this is. It's a podcast. If you didn't know this was a podcast and you honestly thought it was the Kanye song, All of the Lights, that's a fucking awesome. Thank you. I'd like to think this podcast is as good as that song. I enjoy it. And a podcast, there you go. When you don't think about things, you just sort of nail them. And that's what you're listening to right now, me nailing it. It's me, your host of the show, Shawnee P, S-O-P, middle name is Oliver, SOP, which is a word. My parents weren't thinking long-term when they named me. My initials spell SOP, which kids who'd bully me back as when I was a kid, not recently. I don't want you to, like, there's not a bunch of fucking 14-year-old dudes just waiting for me to leave my apartment, just say, hey, come over here, Sop, you fucking dweeb. No, but they existed at some point, and they're probably, none of them are doing very well in life, I imagine now, so fuck them. But they tried to use Sop as an insult, but they never gave it a definition. That's where they fucked up. See, I would have, if I was bullying myself, which I do regularly, I give Sop a definite, like, oh man, you're such a Sop, which is basically just a wet thud. That's what you are in life, bud. You're a fucking sop, a wet thud. Because I was better at being a dick than the kids who were dicks to me. But when we talk about that in this episode, because this week's guest, look, all my guests are fucking fantastic. So this week's guest is no exception, except for how they are an exception in every other realm of life. They're exceptional. Except on this podcast, where all the guests are exceptional. They're just, they're part of the status quo, I'd say, of this podcast specifically. But this comedian is one of my favorites. I met him in Atlanta years ago. He moved to New York. He wrote for a show that probably none of you saw called Comedy Knockout. It was on True TV. He wrote for that for a minute. And now he writes for a show that, if you haven't seen, you absolutely fucking should. It's called The Marvelous Ms. Maisel, and it's a fantastic television program. We'll talk about that as well. He is the comedian Noah Gardenswartz, and you're going to love him. He's fucking hilarious. He's got a lot to say. This episode, like every episode, is an adventure into the wilderness of the conscious mind. So strap in, enjoy it. You're going to fucking love it. And if you are in the New Jersey and near Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, you feel like traveling, or if you live close to Royersford, Pennsylvania, I will be there this coming Friday, January 29th, headlining the show. It's at 7 p.m. James Mattern's on the show hosting. Cypher Sounds will be DJing beforehand and then doing a set. Don't worry, I didn't Limp Bizkit up my act. He does the DJing beforehand, and then he opens. He's very funny. And then I am headlining at Soul Joel's Comedy Club and Lounge, Royersford, Pennsylvania, January 29th. It's Friday. This Friday, 7 p.m. See you there. Listen to the episode. Love it like you will. Stay healthy. Stay safe. See you soon. And we are back. That's right. I say that at the beginning of every episode because I like to think that you listen to the episode and then you don't stop thinking about it. And you obsess over it for a week and then you're like, I need more, so that now you're listening to the next episode and it seems like you never stopped. Maybe there was just a temporary pause. And we're back, folks. This week's guest, Denver-born, Atlanta-raised, I'm guessing here, physically built like a forward in the NBA, mentally constructed like a poet laureate. That's pretty good. The one and only Noah Gardenswartz, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I want you to do all my bios going forward. That was about as much as I could have asked for. Great job.
Yeah, I could have. Sometimes, you ever, I think something I'm pretty good at is saying nice things about someone. Sure. And but I wish I was better at being mean sometimes because I'm terrible at
it. I think if you had to choose one or the other, you got the better quality.
Yeah, right?
Better to be nice. Better to be good at being nice than good at being mean.
I would love to be. I would love to meet. I'm sure there's someone out there who's just like a fucking asshole, and like behind closed doors, are like, I just wish I could compliment someone just once. You know,
A lot of damaged people out there.
do you now? You are. Am I right? You're from You're from Colorado, but you grew up in Atlanta, right? Or you came up in Atlanta?
No, I'm comedically raised in Atlanta. I born and raised in Denver. I lived in Denver until I was 18, and then I moved to Atlanta. I went to Atlanta for college and stayed there. I lived in Atlanta from age 18 to 30 and started comedy in Atlanta. So like when we first met and when I was coming up in the comedy scene and people would ask where you're from, I would say Atlanta because I was an Atlanta comedian. But
you also have a very you also have a very Atlanta vibe. You have like a very southern like a southern guy, like a, what's a way to say this without completely fucking sound like a dipshit, but like you have that sort of, you have that sort of Atlanta like city vibe. You have that southern city vibe.
The city suited me well. I felt at home from the time I was there.
Because like you just like when you say you're from Denver, it's a very like, man, you just don't. That you don't seem as granola, even though Denver isn't very granola. But you know,
what's funny is I always thought Atlanta and Denver were pretty similar in terms of vibe, just in that they're kind of slower moving, laid back cities.
Yeah.
And they're like blue cities in an otherwise normally red state.
Yeah.
But like when people outside of Colorado think of Denver, they think of like mountains and granola, which there's certainly that element in Denver, but that's largely outside of Denver, and Denver is just a city.
Yeah, like Denver is a pretty fucking great city. Like I love Denver. I also love Atlanta though. I just went to Atlanta in December to do shows at the Punchline because they were like, look, we're at 25% capacity, which I was like, that's great. That seems like a normal weekend for me.
Exactly.
At the Denver Punchline, like, oh, we can only have 35 people in here. That's all you were doing,
baby.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have to feel bad about it.
Yeah, turn people away at this point.
Yeah.
But like Denver, I'm sorry, Atlanta, I feel like is a true purple city.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, but in a way that it works, where like you get people who you, especially on the redder side, who, you know, are gun owning, you know, big SUV driving. They lived there before Hollywood moved there, you know?
Right.
And they have some interesting views, but they're not assholes. They're just like, this is just how I see the world.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta, like, you know, the South always gets stereotyped as racist in general by Northerners, or especially the Northeast. And I've always said that, like, of course, racism exists all over the country, and there's a history of it in the South. But largely in the South, people are forced to interact way more than people outside of the South do. Like white Southerners have to learn to interact with black people and vice versa. Whereas in New York City, if you want to be a white guy and only be around white people, even in a city as diverse as New York City, you can. So it's like, I've actually found a lot of times Southerners to be much more tolerant of the other side, just because it's part of the culture down there where everyone is mingling with each other.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a fantastic way to say it. Like I think the Southeast is more progressive than certain cities on the West Coast.
Yeah,
you know, like in Atlanta or in New Orleans, or like there are, or even like a Houston, Texas. You know, it's like Austin gets all the praise for being Austin, but like Houston's also pretty fucking. It's a giant city.
Yeah,
where people are like
third largest population in America, right?
Yeah, like people are forced to mingle with everyone, and like you get to certain areas of like, you know, I'm like I feel like Portland takes a lot of flack, but there are certain parts of Portland where you'll see a shitload of Black Lives Matter material, but not that many black people.
Yeah,
and you're like, that's an interesting balance, but hey, fuck it. I mean, at least you're in the right mindset.
But yeah, say all that to say, I feel very lucky to have lived in the cities I've lived in. Denver, Atlanta, and New York City are the three cities I can like claim having actually spent a good amount of time living in. That feels like a cool trio, and also different parts of America to experience different cultural vibes, and it's been good.
Well, also, outside of New York and LA, I think Denver and Atlanta are two of the best comedy scenes.
Yeah, something else fortunate to be like I can be around good comedy even when I leave
Yeah.
the Meccas. Even when I leave the great comedy scenes of New York and LA.
Yeah. Wait, I got it. Crazy. Okay, so I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just gonna go out on a limb here, but like, for reasons that are my own, are you Jewish? No, I'm saying, but, but like
What's
growing up,
funny is if you put our pictures up on the internet right now and gave people $1 million and they, gun to their head, had to guess which one of us was Jewish, I think a lot of people would pick you.
if it was, if
visual right now,
yeah, if it was like one of these guys is Jewish, one of these guys is related to Travis Kelce.
Yeah. I'll take that too.
I swear to God, dude, if you were in like an acting, if you were like a younger actor, you'd be playing Travis Kelce in like 8 years when his career's over.
I used to, I can currently be Kelce. I used to, like when I was in college and he was at UCLA in his first few years in the league, I was a dead ringer for Kevin Love. Like I used to.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Before Kevin Love grew out his hair and lost all that weight, when he was a little chubbier and short-haired, I was Kevin Love's younger brother. Like no problem.
I mean, I remember like when he first started playing, where you were like, that guy's teammates with LeBron. That dude. Yeah. I don't understand, but it's not for me to understand. Yeah. But like, okay, this is slightly more serious question, but like, two-parter. A, is there a Jewish community in Denver?
Oh, you want me to answer one at a time, or yes?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. There actually is about 60,000 strong. It's a very supportive, tight-knit Jewish community, and my mom and dad. My mom is no longer with us, but when she was alive, she was like a linchpin she was like a queen of the Denver Jewish community, and my dad is still very active. So not only is there a community, but I like very much grew up as a part of the Denver Jewish community.
Is there one in Atlanta?
There is. When I lived in Atlanta, I went to Emory and then I ended up getting a house near Emory. And there's one neighborhood near Emory that is a Jewish neighborhood. A lot of people don't realize when Jewish neighborhoods form, it's usually just because it's close to the synagogue, because like religious Jews don't drive on the Sabbath, so they need to be they need to be within walking distance of the synagogue. And there happens to be 2 synagogues near Emory. And so a Jewish community formed in this neighborhood. And I lived, even though I wasn't as active in Atlanta's Jewish community, I lived within the community. And I think numbers wise, it's similar to Denver's in like 50, 60, 70,000 strong.
Did you, because you've told me before that you've done like the Jewish circuit.
Still do.
You still do.
let me tell you something. The only shows I've done in quarantine right now, I am absolutely crushing it on the Jewish Zoom circuit. Like the Hillels, the JCCs, the Federations. I'm doing comedy nights for all of them.
That's okay. Because I remember that was when that's ridiculous. I was going to say that was when I learned you were Jewish. That's definitely not true. But like, I just remember a couple years back, you telling me like, I've been going on the road a lot, doing these Jewish circles or this Jewish circuit. And I was like, what is the difference really? You just have to like sprinkle in some like hardcore
well, so it depends on the act, but like for me, the difference is night and day because I have a entirely separate Jewish hour.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like there are Jewish circuits that will bring in a comedian who just happens to be Jewish,
right.
like he's a fantastic comedian and I don't know whether or not he changed it up, but like someone like Josh Gondelman, who he may go do an hour of comedy and only 3 or 4 minutes of it is Jewish material, if that, but he's just like a lovable Jewish guy who can do well on a clean Jewish show, right?
Right.
So there are those. I have an entire hour of jokes about Judaism, the religion, the culture, the ethnicity, and so I'll go in and do a straight up hour of Jewish material for these Jewish crowds.
Wait, are you like is there like a character involved? Do you roll?
No, I'm myself. It's just the things I talk about are much more Jewish related.
Dude, I would fucking love it so much.
How funny would it be if someone spied, like one of my friends from the regular comedy scene, just like saw that I use a completely different voice and wear a yarmulke and
you wear that like the thing that I've only seen New York Jews rock, but like that straight up like it looks like a layer cake.
Yes, a Shriner.
Yeah.
Primal. It
Yeah.
looks like a pimp's hat, just like a fur circle on top of your head. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It looks like you're trying to show off how much money you have. Because it's never that cold. It's like, oh, that guy's wearing a fur bunt cake on his head. That's bragging. I would love the idea if like we find out, like, did you guys know Noah's actually like the Jewish Larry the Cable Guy?
Right. I have my catchphrase, Mazel Tov.
Yeah. Like you're Shlomo the Dreidel man.
Yeah. But no, I mean so the shows I'm myself, you know, it's the same kind of comedy I do as well. Like, you know, most of them ask me to be clean, but I'm still slightly irreverent in my
sure.
Like I'm on the edgier side of I got a real edgy Torah joke, you know, but like but aside from the content, you know, it's different when you're performing for an all Jewish crowd because culturally they respond to comedy differently.
Well, no, I mean, like but I would say that's also like you as a comedian anyway. Like I would never call you like a dirty comedian, but I would also never call you vanilla. I'd be like, no, you're up there saying some shit. You're up there speaking from a real place, and it's funny because it's like a lot of truth to it. But like, I would never be like, oh man, Noah, you're putting Noah on that show, and there's children there. Oh God, you better bring an exorcist priest, or I don't know why that popped into my head, but you better bring some soap for them to wash their mouths out after repeating his jokes.
Yeah. Well, you have to be bar mitzvah age or older to appreciate a Noah Gardenswartz joke.
Yeah. Wait, I mean, I think that's also just not really a side note, but that's kind of what comedy is now, where it's like, there was a time where there was this universal stage for it all, but I feel like now, especially after the pandemic, everybody's got to find their niche, and you can't choose it. You just got to fucking embrace whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, it's like I agree with you, and I think that's absolutely true. If you want to go out and actively find your niche, for me, I like being able to perform in several different niches because, like, when I first started, you know, I started in Atlanta, and most of my earliest shows, like, I was performing on the Black comedy circuit, and so for a while, my niche was being the white guy on the Black shows, you know.
Right.
And so there's like. What I loved about being in Atlanta is right before I moved to New York, like my last year of Atlanta, where I was like a local headliner and like was confident in a lot of different areas. On any given week, I might do an all Black crowd, an all Jewish crowd, go do the Star Bar, and then go do like an alty hipster college show, and then go to the Laughing Skull or the Punchline.
Right.
And it's like I was myself every which way, and there were a few jokes that would cross over no matter what, but I was also doing 4 or 5 different styles of comedy within 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, like, when I met you, like, you definitely rocked, like, the thin-framed, like, you weren't a thick-frame glasses guy. You were, like, a thin-frame, like gold, like, not gold, but, like, nicer than just, like, hipster glasses. You weren't trying to be, like, you were like, I need these for sight, and they might as well look good. And I feel like there was a chain involved in your day-to-day wear, but not like
I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but it's also funny. When I first started doing comedy, my first 2 years in comedy, I used to wear gold teeth on stage.
Like a whole grill, or just like one or two?
Top to bottom gold grill. Like
that's fucking. I'm jealous. God damn it! It's like I think grills are so interesting. I just want to like. I want to wear one, but a guy like me, dude, I'd look like a fucking warlord if I wore.
Well, I mean, it's not exactly like I was pulling it off, you know, like at the time I felt really cool, but looking back, I shudder thinking about it. But what was interesting is like, even then, like I only wore the teeth on stage. So I wasn't like a guy walking around Atlanta with gold teeth 24 hours a day, but I also wasn't playing a character. For me, it was like, I think I had to get over the insecurity of going up on stage. And so it was like Superman going into the booth and changing into a uniform, where it was like a way to separate Noah the person from Noah the comedian. And so even though I wasn't going up and changing the way I acted or spoke, like something about having the gold teeth in made it okay to go do comedy.
Yeah, I mean,
which is so weird.
But whatever. I mean, like, it was people have that at first. Like everyone has that. Like it's almost like they're shepherd, or like they're little. Like, I know, because dude. I mean, when I started, I had a fucking ponytail, and like would purposefully wear like big shirts, and I don't mean big in like size, but big in just like like colorful, ridiculous button-down shirts.
Sure.
because I was like a big energy guy, you know?
Picture of you with a ponytail and a Hawaiian shirt and just killing.
Pretty close. Never like I would always avoid that Hawaiian shit, but what I was getting was not. I was hypocritical to judge anyone with a Hawaiian shirt. Be like, look at that Hawaiian shirt. Mine's got fucking snakes and like. Oh, it was all Goodwill stuff too. That was the other thing. It was all thrift. So it was a lot of '70s big collar. A lot of that.
Vintage.
Yes, vintage. A lot of big collar shirts in the fucking early aughts. But like, because I think about like all white Reebok Nike, all white Reebok Noah. Like that's what I think about when I first met you.
I mean, I still like to have a clean pair of sneakers on stage. I lost the gold teeth, but I still like to wear clean shoes.
You made an art form out of you can't necessarily use the word anymore, so I just call it South African American. You know, but there's like because growing up in Louisiana, like that was who you were as a kid too, and like everyone, I feel like that's a phase everyone's got to kind of go through. Not everyone, but certain people, like when you're looking for your identity, when you're trying.
It's funny because it feels like looking back, it always seems inauthentic, but if it feels like an authentic extension of your personality at the time as you kind of grow and figure out what is authentically your voice and stuff, it's a thing a lot of white guys who are trying to be cooler go through. Absolutely.
I mean, it also seems like if you're not like a pure white dude, like, you know, like a Jew, like Jewish people are white people, but like it's a different. I feel like, and like same thing with like Indian kids or Asian kids. I feel like everyone sort of like gravitates towards black culture just because it's a lot cooler than white culture. You know what I mean? Like it's not. Sure. It's like no, I'd rather do this. This seems way more authentic and real than just being like, hey guys, Patagonia, huh? But like,
I mean, it's like there's depending on how you utilize it. It's either appreciation or appropriation, and there's a fine line between the two. But either way, it comes from an acknowledgement that it's a cooler culture than whatever you are naturally bringing to the table.
And appropriation can be such a tricky word because sometimes I'm like, isn't the word woke itself appropriation? Like, like a fucking like a 22-year-old white dude being like, I'm woke as fuck, and you're like, that right there, you just proved you weren't.
Statement.
Yeah, just right there, bam. But like, whatever. It's. But because so over my cohort and lady partner Caitlin, she posted over the summer. She posted a video about how ugly white babies are, right? And then the joke was she posted a picture of herself when she was a baby, and she was a very fucking ugly baby. And it was on TikTok, and she caught a hellstorm of anti-Semitic hate. Caitlin is her mother, so she's Jewish because her mom's Jewish. So she caught this, like, I mean, I'm talking, it's still to this day she gets comments of just like pure fucking.
Well, I will say on social media, it doesn't take a lot to catch a hailstorm of anti-Semitic hate.
Right, like, and I had heard that for years probably from you. I mean, I've heard it from Louis Katz used to talk about it. Ari, of course, Shafir, that guy looks for it, but he gets it. But he gets way more than is fair, and like, it happens to people, and like, but then seeing it through her shit, where it was like, she doesn't even mention in that video being Jewish. They just hated that video, and then looked at all her other videos where she mentions it in a couple of other ones, and like, I'm talking just like pure evil shit. And then she found out she was on 4chan and had to like wipe her history from, but like, it's fucking scary how anti-Semitism is such a confusing thing. And it seems to me like the root of it is that Jews are like the one minority that still was able to somehow have its shit together in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons for it, and it depends entirely on what it's rooted in, you know.
Yeah.
But what I've found is a lot of times people who are like anti-Semitic don't even really know what they hate about Jews, other than like this idea that they've been told Jews are controlling things that is somehow putting them at a disadvantage.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I didn't mean like Jews are the only minority that have their shit together. Most minorities have their shit together, but I'm saying like
Sure,
in the
there are
history,
plenty of Jews who don't have their shit together.
exactly.
There's
Right.
everything of everyone, you know.
But there's this perception that like there's this perception that even though Jews were enslaved for thousands of years, it was fucking awful, and have kind of always just been like the scapegoat of society. It's like something's wrong in the world, probably the Jews, which is fucking insane. But it seems like there's also this perception, like, but also they have all the goddamn money and gold too. So that's how are they down and out when they run everything? And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because that's what I read a lot of these comments where it was just like people denying the Holocaust, and like you go on their page, and also not hiding their page. They're not even using burner accounts. And you go on their account and it's like, you're 17. Why are you thinking like this?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as ugly and unfortunate as it all is, anti-Semitism, racism, bigotry, all that ultimately comes from a place of extreme fear, extreme ignorance, and extreme insecurity. And so that's not to excuse it or write it off or say it's not serious or troubling, but at the end of the day, when someone is being that hateful, you're talking to a scared little child.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a fact. Because there is no reason to hate something so much, especially if you're a 19-year-old kid living in fucking Wichita, Kansas. I'm just using this fuck as an example, who was like proud of it, and you were like, you've never left the state of Kansas.
Well, beyond that, I'd be willing to bet my life on it that he's never actually met Jewish people. So again, it's like, so it's like really easy to villainize people that you can't put an actual face on or an experience with, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I did. So this is a strange tie-in because, like, I just did a podcast. Mo Mandel has a podcast about life as a Jewish.
Listen, as a Jew, I'll say Mo is a very hateable Jew.
Mo just runs.
I can't fault anyone that hates Mo Mandel, Jewish or not.
That guy just asks for it. Yeah. It's funny because he has a podcast about being a Jew, and he has me on the podcast, and I'm like, wait, no, Mo, you know I'm not Jewish. He's like, what? And I was like, I know, I look it, but
did he really not know?
He didn't. I mean, he didn't know. We didn't start recording, so it's not like captured. But no, he didn't know. He thought I was legit Jewish, and I was like, no, dude, I'm not. But you know what is interesting though? Like Esther,
Esther, my wife Esther, also very Jewish. She had a joke in conversation just with me and her. We're talking. She was like, Jews make up less than 1% of the world population, but take up 30% of its emotional energy.
That's funny. Yeah.
So it's like, of course, no one wants to invite anti-Semitism or anything like that, but like Jews also love to talk about being Jewish, whether or not they love being Jewish, whether or not they practice Judaism. Jews love being Jewish and talking about being Jewish. And so it's, we're not inviting it, but it's also like we're not necessarily making it hard either for anti-Semites to come out and hate us.
But that's the thing, dude. Like I've kind of been over the past, like, we've been together for almost 7 years. Like I've been doing, Caitlin's not a practicing Jew, but she is a respecting Jew. She's a, we do Hanukkah every year. And like, she's all, she throws props its way. So I love it. Like Jewish food, I fucking love all of it. I don't understand how you can hate it. Give gefilte fish right now. I'll eat the shit right now. Like, all of it, dude. Bagel, lox, all of it. Like, and also just like, I wish Hanukkah and Christmas would merge. Because
so do most Jews.
Yeah, it's like, it's fucking 8 days, or you light a candle, there's another gift, you fucking drink Manischewitz. Not really, that shit's gross. That's the one thing I don't like. But it's a pretty, I don't know, I'm saying to anyone listening, if you don't know anyone Jewish, go meet a Jewish person and ask them to take you along for some of the holidays. Passover dinner's delicious,
Yeah, Jews are typically a good time.
We went to a Jewish wedding not that long ago where I learned that they don't actually step on a glass, but it's a light bulb, because the glass could the shard could rip right through your foot, which is like, be practical.
Safety first.
Yeah. But also, real quick, You brought up your wife Esther. The last show I did in New York before the pandemic hit was the Cumtown Boys have their show at. Everybody say yeah, and she was up right before me, and I just want to remind everyone who's listening, she was fucking pregnant.
Yes, she was.
Like tail end of pregnancy, pregnant.
She was performing until the very
and going on stage, and you're like, I hope this child doesn't. Actually, part of me hopes it kind of happens now because it would be an interesting moment of like, well, everyone, thank you. Bye. I have to go with the child.
Funny? I'm not just bullshitting. Like, our son Moses has an awesome sense of humor. He's only 8 months old, but he laughs when he's supposed to laugh. Like, he already, like, when we say something that's clearly funny to each other, or we say something sarcastic to him, those are the only time he laughs.
Right.
And part of the reason we think is Esther was going up her entire pregnancy, and like in utero, he was hearing the rhythm of laughter and like the cadence of telling a joke.
Dude, I promise you that's why. Like, because isn't that a thing with children of musicians?
Yeah.
Like, they like understand because they hear music being played, and like, I guarantee, dude, that's like, what if your son like had, like, if he has the blueprint of the joke, just kind of like, you know what I'm saying, his neurological pathways are like lined with like the like you guys might have given birth to like the comedy savior.
I mean, I'm going to do what I can to keep him away from comedy, but if he wants to do it, he wants to do it.
Yeah. It's like, don't do it, son. And that's only going to make him want to do it 5 times more. You know?
I'm going to help him, though. I'm not going to be the one getting him spots on the lineup, I'll tell you that much.
I mean, yeah, would you, honest question, would you, if your son wanted to do stand-up, would you be like, use a different name? Would you encourage that?
No, honestly, if he wanted to do stand-up, I think I would make him go about it on his own the way he wanted to. I wouldn't tell him what he can or can't do.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't be taking him around like, this is my son, let's get him some stage time. You know, it's like, I had to figure this shit out on my own. And because I did, it made me a better comic. So if you actually want to be a good comic, go figure it out.
That would be so... I can't even think of what I would do. I would like be like, all right, son, you have to move to LA though, because we're living in New York. You at least have to go to a different city.
Yeah, right.
At least go to a
different.
Funny
is Esther's father was a failed comedian. So like,
what, really?
Yeah, Esther's dad used to do comedy in the 80s, and part of the reason Esther is a comedian, she grew up with a father who was like pushing her into comedy. He actively wanted her to grow up to be a professional comedian.
Yeah, I mean, there's if you know Mike Lawrence.
Yeah. His mom was a comic, right?
I believe both of his parents were comics.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mike's like way more successful than either of them ever were, which is hilarious because like listeners, Mike Lawrence, hilarious writer for so many things, but you know him probably as the roast. He like won the Comedy Central roast battle.
Yeah, he's great.
He's hilarious, but like, yeah, both of his parents, and like I think they were also estranged. I think they were like, he didn't hang out with his parents very much. So like, he achieved a level of success, and then they kind of came back into his life, which is crazy. Because
if you're a comedian and your kid does comedy, you should want them to eclipse your career. Like if Moses is gonna get into comedy, I hope he's far more successful than I am or that Esther is, because if he's not, that's just embarrassing.
Like if you're like, you use a sports analogy, like in comedy, like if he gets into comedy, you hope you're the Archie Manning and he's the Peyton.
Without question, I want to be the Del Curry to his Stephen Curry.
Right.
and not the Michael Jordan to Jeffrey Jordan, who I think was like a bench warmer on a Division I team, which I'm sure he's. Yeah. You put him on a team at any YMCA and he's dropping 50 on whoever's on the court, but like by Michael Jordan standards, it's probably an embarrassment.
Like you don't want Moses to be the Jacob Dylan to your Bob Dylan.
Correct.
Just like,
the Wallflowers had their moment.
They had their moment, but yeah, exactly. But they had their moment, but they're never going to sell their catalog for what was it, 500 million or whatever.
Sure. But this entire conversation is why I stick by my guns that I am going to hopefully steer Moses away from comedy.
Steer him into like, this is one of the. That'd be fucking hilarious if you find out that like the reason it seems like Jewish parents push their kids to be doctors and lawyers so much is because they don't want to be comedians at all. So they're like, we technically, in some ways, invented this. Now get away from it. It's ruined so many of us.
He's a big boy. I think he's going to be tall like me, maybe even taller. And so I'm very much just going to start the point guard training now. Because if he's ever going to go pro, it's going to have to be as a point guard. So that's my vision.
Well, I can see. Yeah, you don't want him to be like a center? Isn't that like a big? What was Kevin Love?
Kevin Love's power forward, but he's also 6'9".
Oh, you don't think he's going to be 6'9"? Because what are you? You're like 6'4".
6'4". I think Mo's going to be about 6'5", 6'6".
Damn, dude. Yeah, you're right. That's crazy because I forget that point guard is the little guy in basketball, and it's still 6'6". It's still 6.5 feet.
That's what's funny is like Steph Curry is 6'3". Steve Nash, who when he played looked comically small out there. Steve Nash is my height.
Jesus Christ, you're right, dude.
Steve Nash is 6'4". So it's like he looked like a little white video game character out there just running around in circles. But if you saw him in 99% of public establishments, he'd be the tallest guy in the room.
Right, yeah. Like I think about that. I'm 5'9", and for me to look at any player of any sport, like even like Drew Brees, R.I.P. I mean, he's not dead, but he's definitely retiring. Retire in peace, Drew. Yeah. Like he's 6 foot, and every time I watch games, anyone who's not a Saints fan is like, God, he's small. I'm like, I know, right? But then I'm like, I'm 4 inches shorter than him, and also 2 months older than him. Isn't that fucking ridiculous?
Yeah, it's all relevant. Yeah, I mean, LeBron is a year younger than me, so what are you gonna do?
How tall is LeBron's? Like 6'9", right?
6'9", yeah, 6'8", 6'9", yeah.
Because that's the other thing you forget. Like you look at him already as a giant. Oh wait, who's he bigger than? Isn't he bigger than Cam Newton?
Yeah, Cam Newton's 6'5".
Right. That's because like when you look at Cam Newton on a TV screen, you're like that horse of a basket.
There's nothing like going to an NBA game in person.
Yeah.
And seeing like these guys are actual giants, like mythical creatures. They are actual giants with the agility and grace and athleticism that is beyond fathomable. Like to see people that large in person having the body control and speed that they do, it really is like seeing something magical taking place.
Well, there was that, I feel like an asshole because I cannot remember his name, but for good reason, because he was always getting me shit-faced. But there was that guy, he was awesome. He worked at the Denver Improv. Okay. And he was in the NBA for like maybe 3 seasons, and then he finished his career in Japan. He played in the Japanese league for like a decade, and then moved back and was like sort of like the comic liaison at the Denver Improv. Back when I was doing that, he was an ogre. Like he was like the most giant human being. I remember the first time he picked me up from the airport, I was like, did I get booked for a club, but actually I'm being taken to be assassinated?
Right.
Because he was just this giant fucking human being. And then like he told me his whole story, just like crushed it in Japan because he was a monolith there, basically. Yeah. Just like but even he was just like, the worst NBA player whoever you think sucks at basketball is a specimen compared to the rest of you.
Oh, without question. And like yeah, I mean, it's like the guy that you think can't shoot, like the big man that you think can barely catch the ball because he missed a layup and all that in an NBA game. If you saw him in a gym, he would shoot 25 out of 30 from 3-point. And like I mean, it's another level. But it's literally the difference between someone who's really funny when they're drunk around their friends. People are like, you should do stand-up versus getting on stage in front of 5,000 people and commanding a room with timing and knowing how to control a crowd. So it's like, it's completely different worlds that most people can never even understand. Like there's such a large disconnect between the reality of it and what you envision when you see it without really knowing.
I mean, that's a great analogy. It's one I like to use where people talk. It's like, yes, anyone could be funny, but it takes a certain type of person to be a comedian, where it's like, yes, anyone can be athletic. You can go to the gym, you can work out, you can jog, you could be in shape, you could be ripped even, but can you actually play a sport? Can you actually get out there and like, it doesn't even matter what the sport is. Can you actually get in an octagon and fight just because you're jacked? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, off stage, I'm not that funny off stage. when I'm with my closest friends and people I'm comfortable with, I can be like, I have a very dry, sarcastic humor, so I don't pull it out around people that I'm not really that familiar with. But like, if you just met me, you would never assume I was a comedian because I'm not that funny in conversation. I don't really try to make people laugh that often in conversation.
Yeah.
But I like to think I'm a good comedian. So like, yeah,
dude.
There's a huge difference between being funny and being a comedian.
Well, also, like, I feel like comedian, especially like you've been doing this for at least a decade. Yeah.
Yeah, about 15 years in.
Yeah, I feel like once you get to like that 10, 15-year mark, it's almost like, because I've heard that quite a bit, where it's like, if I didn't know you were a comedian, I never would have guessed it. And it's like, well, yeah, because at a certain point, you're not just going for, usually the funny guy in the room is just going for the low-hanging fruit or the obvious stuff and just beating everybody to it. When you get to a certain point in comedy, you're not looking at that shit anymore. You're like looking deeper, and when you find that truly funny moment, you don't share it right away because you're like, wait, let me write this down. I'm gonna write.
Guys.
I gotta write this down and work on it for And so like, because I find a lot of times, especially early on, the comedian who's super on just around people, oftentimes gets on stage and just flatlines.
Sure, but I mean, early on and even now, I can't really hang around comedians who are always on.
Oh yeah, me too.
I can't do it.
Yeah, I think like there's like a different gear when comedians are on around each other. It's a different kind of on. It's like this, just like vulnerable sort of like, we are all just shooting the shit, saying things that would horrify some people. But,
sure, I love a good comic hang where people are free to be funny, but I can't stand the comedian who has to be funny all the time.
Exactly, who has to just be, and then you're like, no thank you, man. Like, that's, I don't know why you still need it in this second, because there's a stage that you're going to get on again, and that's a gear you need to have like greased up and ready to go, but not like the guy who just won't. Well, that leads me to my next thing, because I remember when you first moved to New York, you were writing for the some would call it short-lived, some would call it revamped, unnecessary, the Frankenstein, the Comedy Knockout.
That wasn't when I first moved to New York. I got that like 3 years into New York.
That was 3 years in? I thought that was when you first got here. Oh, shit.
I got that like, I want to say 2015, 2016. Maybe a little earlier than that. But yeah, it took me like 2 years of being in New York to get that.
Man, that's fucking insane. I thought, because that show is basically like a True TV sort of thrown together show to compete with At Midnight, which was on Comedy Central. It was huge back then.
Yeah, I mean, in all fair, I think I'm being honest when I say it was such a bad show and such a good show all at once.
At the same,
it didn't try to be something it wasn't. It didn't try to be over the top. It did give comedians room to be funny. Like, they would put 3 panels on and let you tell your jokes and let you riff with each other. Damian Lemon was a great host.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was just like a kind of corny panel show that had to be on a corny cable network.
I remember, like, the writing staff was always so fucking great. It was always a good room and a very crazy diverse room. That's the thing I remember most. Not just in, like, ethnicity, but in, like, comedic style. Where it was
they did. Tim Fornaro, who was the executive producer, he did a great job, I will say. Like, yes, it was a diverse room, both in gender and race, but also in terms of comedic voice. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, but for some reason, like, it doesn't matter how many funny people you get together when a panel show has to happen. There's just this natural layer of, like, I don't even know, like, hilarity disinfectant, where it's almost like, okay, we gotta,
Yeah, because you got the live audience, and like someone flubs a line and you got to take it again. It's like, oh, you want me to tell the punchline that they just heard, but then pretend like they haven't heard it? That's, it's like shit like that waters down. But I will say, something like that showed me a huge difference between, like, who I would consider a comic and, like, a really someone who takes the craft seriously and takes pride in their work. Because of course I won't name names, but, like, as a writer, we had to prepare material for comics in case they came with nothing.
Right.
And it was about a 50-50 split, where some comics would come in completely with their own jokes, or maybe need like one or two, And then there were some who literally came with nothing and then would look at us like, okay, so what jokes do you have for me?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, do you really have no pride in like your ability to write a joke that you're going to come on a comedy panel show and just completely read off someone else's shit?
I mean, I always know when I did those shows, I came with jokes, but also came being like, I'm going to take one of yours as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Like a balance.
If someone can beat your joke in a way that works for your voice, then that's great. Yeah, you should be willing to collaborate. But to come with absolutely nothing planned and just be like, what do you have for me? I always thought that was so lame.
That is weird. That is to just be like, hey, just whatever. I'm an actor playing myself.
Right.
Yeah, it's like that's weird. Yeah, but like that show, and then I know there was probably something in between, but then you jumped to Marvelous Miss Maisel.
What was in between was a bunch of failed pitches and writing packets that didn't get me jobs. So I literally did go from Comedy Knockout to Maisel.
So that is such a crazy to me. Like, it just goes to show you that you truly never fucking know, because you look at Comedy Knockout and you're like, if you had to guess, like, one of these writers will move on to an Emmy-nominated, somewhat groundbreaking, scripted, not this, like acting, scripted series with the creator of Gilmore Girls. Is it possible, folks? If that were a question on a game show, people would be like, no! The whole audience would be like, no way! Why? But true, you like you went from this like game show sort of, and I remember like the rules were pretty loose at Comedy Knockout, and then you jump to this show that's now like, you know, everything about it. It's set in a different era. You're writing for someone, but as a character. There's storylines. You're working with Tony Shalhoub. You know, that's a change.
Who's the best, by the way?
Oh, I imagine. Shalhoub's probably the coolest guy.
So here's what's interesting about all this. It's completely looping back to the very beginning of when we started talking about just coming up in Atlanta and how I used to do so many different types of shows and be prepared for so many different voices. When I was in Atlanta at that time, all I wanted to do was get like, I was still a local feature or host, you know, and like I was just interested in getting good at comedy. I just loved stand-up. I was new at it. I was hardly making money doing it. And I would just do it for the love of it and the skill set that it provided. Then I moved to New York and was worried about like getting on TV or getting jobs and all this. Say all that to say, for years in New York, I wrote packets, I pitched shows, I submitted, I got showcases, never got any work out of it. When I got this interview with the Palladinos who created Mrs. Maisel, what really got me the job was they wanted a stand-up comedian who could help write for the world of stand-up, and they loved the fact that I had this experience doing so many different types of shows, because I talked to them about how I used to do Jewish shows and black shows and college shows and alt shows and then standard shows, and the fact that I could come to comedy with so many different perspectives is really what sold them on me as a writer.
Yeah.
So it was actually my comedy experience when I was early as a comedian, just doing it for the love of comedy as opposed to like writing a great spec script or a pilot, that ultimately led to me getting a job that changed my life.
See, that's a great fucking way to look at it too, because it's almost like, obviously you can plan what you want. You can take the steps to get to where you want to be, but the most important step is to continue to work on yourself, meaning just like up your knowledge, up your ability, up your game, so that no matter what ends up being thrown at you, you know how to handle. Yeah. Because that's what I remember. I watched the first 2 seasons of Miss Maisel. I haven't been caught up yet, just because TV now, that's the other thing about writing for TV now. I'm sure you fucking deal with this all the time. It's so goddamn competitive because there's so much of it.
There's never been more.
There's never been more. Yeah. And like, I feel like there's very, like, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, maybe then you could have a couple of dud episodes. It's fine. There's still, what else are they going to watch? And now it's like, no, you cannot slip at all.
Yeah. Well, especially when there's only 8 to 10, like a lot of the streaming shows, you know, sitcoms used to be 23 or 26 episodes a year. And now it's like streaming. They give you 8 to 10 episodes all at once. And you can just, if you really like the show, in a day and a half, you can be done for the next year.
Yeah.
So you can't fuck it up.
What I loved about the pilot, though, the pilot, of Marvelous Miss Maisel. What I loved about it, and it was how you could tell comedians were writing it, is because in the ultimate scene where she's kind of like she's drunk and she just goes on stage somewhat by accident, but somewhat just sort of like doesn't give a fuck, and she when she does her first set where she gets arrested at the end of it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I want to tell you something important. I want you to finish, and then I'll tell you something important.
What I loved about it is the way it's written. She doesn't like. It's not this bullshit kill. It's not this like she goes up there and just starts vomiting up like perfectly written jokes and all of a sudden, like if you ever watched the movie Punchline, you ever see that movie?
Yeah, Tom Hanks and Sally Field.
Yeah, that was
had a locker room.
Yeah, where comedians had a
locker room. Yes,
right, and they were all doing multiple 20-minute sets for money. But the problem with that movie is Sally Field goes from crippling stage fright to like almost almost like comedy god omnipresence on stage in like
crowd work. Yeah,
right, like in like what a week.
Yes,
whereas like. What I loved about which is just not possible. What I loved about the Maisel scene is in that moment, she's not this like perfect fucking comedian. She's just unraveling. She's like the madness that is necessary to sort of drive every comedian is just coming out of her. And the way you guys wrote the audience reaction, I thought was perfect too. Where it was like she obviously was killing it the way like that bartender saw, like, oh, you've got it. And, like, people who were laughing at her from the crowd were laughing, but you could tell they were that, like, West Village sort of like, oh, this chick's out of her fucking mind. Like, you made it kill in the right way.
Here's where I have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Everything you said is correct and true and a perfect observation, except for the fact where you say you could tell comedians wrote it. The pilot is the only episode that worked on because – that was the show that was the episode that got the show picked up so they could hire writing staff. It was written by Amy Sherman Palladino, the show's creator and main writer. But in all fairness to her, her father was a comedian. Her father was a Catskills comedian of the 60s, Don Sherman. So like she knows comedy and understands comedy. She used to work at the store as a door girl in the 80s. So like she gets the world. But I just had to like let you know that rant giving us all this credit just to let you know that like that is literally the only episode of the show I didn't work on.
That's fucking hilarious. Wow. Well, I mean, hey, that the thing all great writers have is that observational ability. So like, yeah, like you just said, she clearly fucking got like, no, this is how a comedian would unravel. Because that's a pretty fucking funny. It's so funny, that scene, as far as being a comedian, that like I almost don't notice when she's suddenly topless.
Yeah.
Where you're just, you know what I'm saying?
If you don't notice that Rachel Brosnahan is topless, that's really saying something about the material.
I mean, you do. Yeah, obviously, you like the pure fucking male side of me is like, but there's a moment where it's like, but what else? Is she being arrested? Yeah, but like that's a fucking great. That's a great show. So I'm like, and it's still going, right? You got what?
Yeah, we're working on season 4 right now.
So is there an end in sight, or is it just sort of like we're just gonna?
The creator, Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino, they know how they want to end it. Yeah, I mean, I think much like I believe David Kelly knew from the very beginning of The Sopranos what happened to Tony and like knew how the series ended.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have their master plan. And I have some inklings. I know where it's going, but I don't know exactly when or how it ends.
That's still something pretty exciting to be a part of, because like you get to just, I mean, when fuck man, I mean, shooting season 4. When did you guys wrap season 3?
God, I want to say September it was September 2019, because I had to give them a hard out of like last week of August is my last week of the season because I'm getting married September 1st.
So you guys, okay, so it was like
we've been off for a year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no telling when shooting will commence.
None. I mean, we're hoping things continue to make it possible to start. But yeah, we have no idea if there's going to be further delays or setbacks or any of that. But I do just want to go back to one part. of the story, just to show how funny it is to be a comedian or in the industry and like
Sure.
how it happened. I'm writing on Comedy Knockout, and while I was writing for Comedy Knockout, my agents told me, like, we got you an interview with the Paladinos. They're looking to bring a stand-up comedian in the room for this show that they're writing. And in the meantime, I had created a show idea that I pitched to Kevin Hart's people as a web series for his LOL network, right?
Right.
2 or 3 weeks go by. I did the interview with the Paladinos. I know Gilmore Girls was a hit. I didn't watch Gilmore Girls. So, like, even though they are legendary TV writers, I wasn't in awe of them quite yet because I wasn't familiar with their work. I just went in to interview for the show about a Jewish stand-up comedian in the 60s. For the next 3 weeks, all I cared about was hearing back on Kevin Hart's, like, did my web series get picked up? All I cared about, like, I'm writing on Comedy Knockout and I might have a web series with Kevin Hart. Literally forgot I even interviewed with the Paladinos for Maisel. Then when I got the job, I was happy to get a writing job, but never in my wildest dreams thought it was going to be a hit show. I was like, cool, I got a job writing for a show that's going to be like a cult hit with 60-year-old Jewish women. But also, what's up with Kevin Hart? Did they respond about my web series yet? And,
Dude, that is fucking psycho.
And yeah, and then of course, again,
wait.
the show that literally changed my life.
Was it the basketball series?
No, it didn't end up getting picked up. I didn't end up doing anything with Kevin Hart's LOL network. But it was like at a time when I literally was up for a job that, of course, unbeknownst to me, would change my life and catapult me into a different stratosphere of like professional accolades. All I wanted to know was whether or not I was going to get to do a web series. And
a web series on a network I don't think actually exists anymore, or does it?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, it's fucking that is how insane this business is.
Yeah,
because it's oh man, that is fucking funny. That is definitely. It's also definitely like I don't even know how to say this properly without sounding like a dipshit. But it's more proof that you truly have to let go.
Yes,
like you truly have to just be like. Up my me. Work on my shit. Be good at what I do, but don't put because dude, I mean, like this is different, but like in 2017, a guy I write my writing partner, a guy I write scripts with, this dude named Rory Windhorst, which is a wonderful name, New Orleanian dude. We sold a show to FX in 2017. And it was just like a game changer when you're like, oh my God, it's finally happening. And then it took 2 years of developing as far as like getting notes, you know, getting in arguments with the producers who were all great. We're all great, but they like pair you up with producers to like help you because it was our first TV writing show and we're like crafting it. And then just over 2 years later, on my fucking birthday, in 2019, I got the call to be like, FX is going to pass on the actual pilot part. We're not going to actually make this. After 2 fucking years. And like, I went through that month of just being like, I'm talking over the top frustrated. Where like, if I could weaponize frustration, I could have fucking taken out, you know, an entire island nation. I was so pissed off of like, that's 28 months of my life dedicated to one idea that is not happening, and now I can't touch because it took a while for FX to give the show back, you know? And then pandemic happened. So it was like, fuck! But now, later looking back, it's like, well, I learned something. And what I learned was like, you love what you do, commit to it, but be expected at any given moment for the entire fucking tide to shift, and you have to swim a different way. You don't have to stop what you're doing. You just might have to adjust how you're doing it. And
100%.
Yeah. And it's like, that sounds like that's so fucking funny. Because think about your life had it gone the other way. Had you left that interview with the Paladinos and they were like, well, that guy was checked out. He clearly had something else on his mind. No, thank you.
Yeah. Or even worse, what if I still got offered the job, but Kevin Hart's web series got picked up and I passed on Maisel to go do a web series?
Oh, dude, I couldn't even. You'd be so overweight right now. You definitely wouldn't have gotten married. You would have complained way too much, and Esther would have left you. You'd be fucking you'd be I mean, because that would
talking to myself at a bus stop.
Yeah, like that's the kind of shit where you'd you'd be that guy who'd bring it up on stage and no one cared. You'd be like, you know the show, Marvelous Miss Maisel, I was almost writing for that, right? You know that. That'd be like your credit. All right, this next guy, I want you to know he got offered. That's fucking crazy. But then again, that Kevin Hart show could have been a smash hit, bro.
Who knows? Bring back Noah with the gold teeth, and I'm a household name.
Yeah, dude. Just call it, the show's called The N-Word with Noah with Noah Gardenswartz. That's the word. No, I'm the N-Word, baby.
Yeah, perfect.
Wait, hey, speaking of writing, well, not really, but where we pull our experiences from, can you give me your 5 words, good sir?
I can.
Yes, sir. Go for it.
Atlanta.
Damn right.
NyQuil.
Oh, shit. Atlanta. Wait, let me write this down, actually, because I'm Atlanta, NyQuil. That's a fun one. All right, go for it.
Pitbull.
Pit. Oh man, this is starting to sound like the like you're giving me the for the movie Belly. If we keep going.
Fireman.
Okay, here we go.
Trash can.
Oh damn! All right, this is perfect.
Spin your yarn, my friend.
You got the. So this is your words again are Atlanta, NyQuil, Pitbull, Fireman, Trash can. So, this is sort of embarrassing for me because I think this is a very well-known story in the Atlanta comedy scene. Everyone knows about this, but I'll go ahead and be the one to tell. So Atlanta, we've already established that is where, Noah, you went to not only Emory College, but you also started doing comedy there. And when you start doing comedy, you're broke. Everybody knows you're broke. So you thought of this genius idea of you became a scissor distiller, right? So you would take NyQuil, and I don't know the exact technique, but to my knowledge, you take NyQuil and you just kind of cook it down a little bit, like you would a sauce or a and you cook it down a little bit, and then it becomes scissor, and you sell that to the kids, and they drink that and they get fucked up. So that's how you were making money early on in Atlanta comedy. No shame in that. And you ended up making so much money that you were like, you know what I want to do? I want to produce a fucking like a show. Let's do a music show. I gotta launder this money, and B, I love hip hop. Oh, we got to get Pitbull. This guy's great. So you hire Pitbull to do your show that you produced off your scissor money. This and little known fact, Pitbull used to be all pyrotechnics. He's not anymore, but he used to like Metallica level. He'd have shit going off behind him. That, of course, fire led to a big fucking fire in the city of Atlanta. And I believe Cabbage Town, I believe, is where you produced the show. Everybody knows Cabbage Town. A lot of flammable shit in that area. So there's a huge fire. The firemen show up. They're putting everything out. No one's hurt. But one of the guys recognizes you, like, hey, man, I bought some of your scissor earlier. You don't remember me? I'm like one of your big customers. He's like, oh, shit, you're a fireman? He's like, yeah, I'm also kind of fucked up right now. Right? And you're like, dude, that you shouldn't be on my scissor while you're fucking, public servant. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. Fuck you. And he throws his axe at someone and ends up causing a scene. And you walk away and realize, I can't sell this shit anymore. I've got to just go straight clean. And you threw it all in a trash can and committed to comedy. There it is. The story of Noah Gardenswartz is...
I know I'm supposed to now tell you the real story, but you nailed it.
I just got it. Home run, baby. Just in the park, one-handed home run. Is that even close?
No, but I love the fact that when I said Pitbull, you went recording artist and not breed of dog.
What's bizarre is that's the one breed of dog whenever someone says pit. Even if someone shows me, this is my Pitbull, the image that pops in my head is the rapper Pitbull.
Well, do you think you become Mr. Worldwide without being a genius at marketing and branding?
Pretty much, exactly. Yeah. Also, same thing happens with Labrador, but that's he's a backpack rapper, so you don't really know him as well.
You must be part of the Portland Black Lives Matter crew you were talking about.
Right. Exactly. Wait, so what's the real story?
Okay, the real story is living in Atlanta in 2010.
Okay.
I had actually stepped away from comedy for a few years, and at this time I was teaching fourth grade. I was a fourth grade teacher.
Wow.
Which is among the most exhausting jobs in the world. I think it's coal miner, fourth grade teacher, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
I lived in a house with 3 other roommates and my dog Bella, who was a pit bull. So It was me. I lived in the basement. Then I had 3 roommates who lived upstairs. And it was one of those houses that was kind of on a slant. So the garage to the house was like a 6-foot dip from the street. And then my basement room was like on the level of the garage, but hidden under what would be the lawn.
Okay, yeah.
It was like street levels of 3 rooms, garage down low, then me in the basement. One weekend, I was so tired from teaching and kind of under the weather that me and my roommates all got a little drunk and then all took NyQuil just to get a great night's sleep. Okay. Now, so
the whole house is on
the whole house except for one of my roommates, my roommate Chris. So it's me and 2 of the roommates, a guy named Willie and a guy named Wendell. We have a little bit to drink. We take our shot of NyQuil and literally are just committed to a night of deep sleep.
Just comatose sleep. Yeah.
That's it. Wake up the next morning, my roommate Chris, who had spent the night at his girlfriend's house, he comes home and he wakes me up and he goes, "What happened to the house?" And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, "Come outside." I go upstairs, I open the front door, I look to my right, and my trash cans are 20 yards over on the neighbor's lawn, just like completely thrown through the wind. And I go, "How did the trash cans get over there?" And he goes, "You're worried about the trash cans?" I look over to my right, and my entire garage and the bottom left side of my house is missing. A chunk of the house, the garage completely caved in, the house literally knocked clean. Turns out that the night before, there was a drunk driver in the neighborhood who, and then as we looked like past the trash cans, you could see tire marks going all the way from the street for like 40 yards across the lawn directly into, there was like a brick wall retainer next to the garage for the slanted driveway. This car veered, like you could see the tire tracks. He hit the brick wall retainer, ricocheted directly into the corner of my house, knocking out the garage, sending the trash cans flying. And I still have absolutely no clue what happened. Because my roommates and I were on NyQuil, we slept through a car literally driving through the house.
Dude, first of all, this is a great, like, I might sell that clip to the corporation that produces NyQuil. Be like, here's your commercial.
Right.
Here's your branding. Like,
so
you don't even remember like a moment of like, oh, what was that? Wow.
Not woke up, not at all. So I'm thinking, surely my roommates, like, I couldn't have been the only one who slept through this. Go wake up Willie, go wake up Wendell. We all stand in front of the house. We're like, what the fuck? We all slept through this. Our neighbors see us standing outside on the lawn, and my next door neighbor, who I wasn't friendly, he was like a good guy, but we had no real relationship. He was just renting the house. He comes over and he goes, "What the hell happened to you guys last night?" And I was like, "What do you mean? I have no idea what happened. This is the first I'm seeing this." He goes, "At 3 a.m., the entire neighborhood was outside. There was a giant fire truck and ambulance outside of your house. The fireman was banging on your front door. Your dog was going nuts barking. No one was answering. So I took the information. There was a drunk driver with a bunch of kids from Emory who hit your car or who hit your house, and they all left the car and just ran away like on foot. So no one knows who did it, but a tow truck came and got the car. I have the police and the fireman's information, so you can call and follow up." But literally, so not only did we sleep through a car driving through our house, we slept through an ambulance and a fire truck with a fireman banging on the door and my pit bull barking at 2, 3 in the morning. The entire neighborhood from houses down the street woke up to come see it, and the 3 people inside the house slept through it.
Dude, this is also an advertisement for pit bulls as like a security dog.
Sure.
Where it's like even firemen who have axes aren't going to fucking kick the door in.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're still terrified of a pit bull's giant fucking head. Dude, that is... Did you ever fuck with NyQuil again?
All the time.
Yeah.
When I need a good night's sleep, I still hit the quill.
But I wonder if, like, every time you take NyQuil, you wake up next day like, what happened, dude?
Yeah. It's like Memento. I need to tattoo myself before I go to bed on NyQuil.
Like, did you take NyQuil in 2016 and woke up and they're like, Trump won? You're like, what? Fuck, I didn't know. And then,
right, I'm losing you a little bit. You're cutting in and out.
Uh-oh. What about now? Am I here? Uh-oh. Hello?
Sean.
Noah, can you hear me? Oh, shit. Hold up. I'm still here. I'm still here if you're still here. Fuck. Hey, are you there?
Yeah, I was.
All right. Woo.
Yeah, we froze right after we were talking about the firemen not knocking down because of the pit bull. Or every time I take NyQuil, a different crazy thing happens.
Yeah, like you took NyQuil in 2016 and woke up and was like, Trump's president?
Yeah, right.
But then you took it again this year and you were like, Biden won? Okay, good. So good things can happen. That would be, yeah, like it's some sort of like, dude, that's the kind of shit that OCD makes you think. Because I have like clinical OCD where like you don't believe it, but you get obsessed with thoughts like that. Like, sure. Man, if I like as a kid when I was a smoker, it was like if I smoke Marlboro Lights, bad shit can happen. If I smoke Camel Lights, it's going to be a good night. But Marlboros were always cheaper than Camels.
So you had to balance the budget versus having a good night.
The budget versus the fate of Louisiana. I didn't think it was global at that point, but
tale as old as time.
Yeah, but dude,
I'll just never forget my roommate Chris's face when he took me outside to show me that half of my house was missing, and I asked about the trash cans. Like, it didn't even cross my mind. I didn't even see it until he literally pointed out. But
that's also a hilarious moment of like, it almost shows like what you really care about. You're like, those trash cans were given to me by my.
Yeah, right.
Were passed down. They're a family heirloom, for Christ's sake.
I'm gonna get fined by the city.
Man,
So ultimately, thanks to this good Samaritan of a neighbor, we did get the information because they obviously traced.
Oh shit! Okay.
Traced the license plate, found the driver, and that driver's insurance basically had to buy me a new quarter of a house. So like, I got some upgrades to my garage, and
wait, really? They had to like rebuild. They had to cut. Wow.
They had to pay for the entire rebuild of the garage in the corner of the house. Yeah.
Do you think he was just some fucking?
Yeah, he was just like a shitty Emory student who drank too much. I mean, honestly, there were like little droplets of blood in the driveway when I went back and looked, but like we heard and found out that no one was seriously hurt.
Yeah.
But just like from the impact of the brick wall into my garage and the speed of like going downhill with the tire tracks, all four of the people in the car could have died.
Oh yeah, dude.
The fact that like the worst thing that happened was that my garage got taken in, it's crazy. Like I was possibly sleeping 15 feet away from 4 kids dying in my driveway.
Yeah, like that morning could have been like, you're worried about the trash cans? The house is gone. Also, there's bodies in there.
Yeah.
Like it could have been.
No, you're worried about the house is gone. There's 4 dead 19-year-olds in your driveway.
Right, dude. How are you going to explain this? That's also, I don't think I'm alone when I say this. That's also a huge, somewhat fear of mine. Because I've had those nights where you just want to sleep, or where I've been like under the weather and you just want to sleep. And I've always been terrified of taking NyQuil for that reason. Of like, no, bro, this is where some fucking crazy, some fucking Richard Ramirez copycat's going to be lurking in the neighborhood, and I'm going to sleep through it.
Well, here's what I will tell you. I did wake up the next day and was missing a quarter of my house, but my cold was gone. So
there you go, man.
So it's
yeah. Hey, everything comes with a price.
Right.
That's fucking hilarious, dude. Wait, so you're writing on the show, working on season 4, but is there anywhere you want to direct some people to catch up with your comedy? Catch some Gardenswartz?
If they want to see, I got some late night sets on YouTube or my Comedy Central half hour. They can go if they want to check out the comedy. Otherwise, follow me on Instagram at Noah G Comedy to see a bunch of pictures of my 8-month-old son.
Yeah, it's very adorable. Your kid is very fucking cute. Very adorable kid.
Thank you.
If you can't find if you want to go a different route, convert to Judaism, and you probably see
Yeah. If you convert to Judaism, I might be appearing on your local Zoom next week.
Yeah, Noah. You'll see Noah as Shlomi the repairman.
That's right.
But no, like seriously, everyone, see Noah. He's goddamn hilarious, and I'm glad you're doing well and coming back to New York soon. And we'll fucking hang again, my friend.
Yeah, pleasure talking to you, man. Good to see you. Looking forward to seeing you in person soon. Be well, be safe, and I'll see you.
Indeed, my friend. Indeed.